If you're considering relocating to Southern Oregon, there's definitely a lot of things that you need to know because there's a lot that you're not gonna be able to find out online. So if you're doing your research, you're Googling, you're looking on YouTube, there's a lot of people who are gonna try to paint the area with, nice rosy picture of it and try to make it look and sound like paradise. But the reality is it's not that in all ways, right? There's some great things about Southern Oregon, but there's definitely some things that you need to know that you're not gonna be able to find somebody to tell you about until you get here and you kind of experience things for yourself. It's hard to find somebody who can share all that stuff with you, and that's what I'm here to do today. So if you've ever watched any of my videos, you know that I'm a straight shooter. I'm gonna tell you the truth, be honest with you about what goes on here in Southern Oregon. I'll talk about some of the things that you probably have read about, some of the myths, some of the truths, and we'll get into all that. So I am Brian Simmons with my Southern Oregon real estate team. And I have lived here for over 30 years and have experienced all of the different things that you can imagine here. So let's talk about the things that people want to know about right out of the gate, which are the main deal breakers, right? And those are the things that, if you knew before you got here, it could potentially, change your opinion on whether or not you even wanted to make a trip to check the place out. And so what I put in that category is the politics. That's something that a lot of people are curious about, what are the politics like in the area? Because if it's very this way or that way, then, that's not the type of place I want to be or whatever. And so, we'll just kind of start with that, which is Southern Oregon in general is pretty conservative. And if you look at the data of the last elections and stuff like that, and registered Republicans versus Democrats, it definitely tends to be more conservative across the board. If you look at Jackson County specifically, it's actually pretty well balanced, pretty neutral politically, and you won't find a ton of political people who, are doing protests and stuff like that. You don't really see a lot of that here. But there's different pockets that differ from that, right? So Ashland, for example, is certainly more of a liberal pocket of Southern Oregon. And so you get, the different things that kind of go along with that, right? That's a college town, a lot more culture in Ashland. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes in more detail, but that is somewhere where that kind of is different than the norm around here. And Josephine County is another example of an area that's different than the norm, which again is pretty balanced, but Josephine County tends to be a lot more conservative than Jackson County. So you have something like 65% people there have voted conservative or voted Republican in the most recent election. So that's one of the things that you see a lot there on the politically. And I know that that's something that some people might hear and be like, well, that's not at all the type of place that I want to be. I want to be somewhere very more, very much liberal or very much conservative, whatever it is that aligns with the values and stuff that you have. But the thing to know about here is that we kind of have all of the above. If you want to be in a very, conservative area, we have that here. If you want to be in a very liberal part of town, we have that here. And so that's something I think is important to know, is that those all exist here. It's just kind of picking the area that kind of most properly aligns with what you're wanting. So that's something that a lot of people don't know. It's information that's kind of hard to find. So another thing that, my experience, there's a kind of misconception about is the climate. You hear people, all the time that we talk to from out of town who aren't familiar as well with the area, and they'll say that, hey, I read that it was really, really hot, or it gets really, really cold, or you guys get a bunch of snow, or whatever the case is. And the reality is that it's actually kind of none of those. It's actually very mild and very balanced. We do get a little bit of snow in the winter, not much, but we get a little bit, probably a few days a year. And in the summer, we get pretty warm, but not anything like, Arizona or Vegas or any of those other places that gets really, really hot. But we'll get into the hundreds in the summers, and there might be, a heat wave that comes through and hits, 110 or something for a day or two. But the reality, we don't really see that sustained for a long period of time like you'll see in areas like, Vegas or Phoenix or, places like that, right? So it does tend to stay pretty mild. The summertime average, I believe if you looked it up, would say that it's probably in the mid 90s high in the summer, and in the winter you're gonna have lows in the kind of mid to lower 30s, and that's pretty common around here. But not very common to get really, really cold, like into the teens or anything like that. I don't know anybody that's, needs to shovel their driveways, shovel the snow out of their driveways or anything like that. So those are kind of misconceptions that we hear a lot. People think that, we're in the rainforest or something too, like where we get a lot of rain. And that's definitely not true. That's something that's kind of more common in Eugene, Portland, everything kind of in the northern part of the state. But here on the southern end, we definitely are in a little microclimate that's much more Mediterranean. And so very well balanced. We get all 4 seasons, like you can see behind me and around me, these beautiful trees. It's fall, that's October. As we're filming this, you can see beautiful blue skies, colorful trees, everything changing color. It's really beautiful out. And that's what, Southern Oregon's well known for, is just being beautiful, like natural scenery and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the things that I think is important for people to know, is that, the climate here is fantastic. There's actually a sign in Grants Pass that says it's the climate. It's been there for 100 years or so. And just a really, good example, or good, kind of calling for what the area is really all about. It's a very, very good climate here. I think you'd find a lot of people who'd say that. But along with that, something that we hear a lot about is smoke. People will say, well, wildfire smoke is an issue, and I've Googled it and I read a lot about it, and I'm really concerned about wildfire smoke. Wildfire smoke exists some years more than others, but I actually did a whole video all about that and talked about the facts, looking at data from the EPA, and talked about, what exactly does the data say. And I don't want to spoil it, but the reality is it was really not as bad as what people say. I think the longest stretch that we've ever had, at least in the last 10 years, was 16 or 18 days of unhealthy air quality. And I compared that to other cities around the country, Los Angeles, Boise, different places like that, to provide examples of what those places are like in comparison. And like I said, I don't want to spoil that, so you have to check that video out, and I'll put a link to that in the description of this video for you to check out. But overall though, wildfires are definitely, they're just part of the, kind of necessary evil. Like when you have so much beautiful forests and stuff like that around here, that's what provides for all the great recreational opportunities and stuff, being able to have all that camping and hiking and all those beautiful, mountain views. Wildfires is kind of a double-edged sword there, but the data again shows it's really not that bad. And I think that's something that is important for people to know if you're evaluating this area to relocate or retire or whatever. It's good to know the facts. So check that video out. It'll provide a lot of good information for you. And so if you want to get a little more info too, you could also download our relocation guide, which is on the screen right now. Just scan that QR code and you could download our guide, and it'll provide all sorts of information for you about the area here, and what to plan for if you're considering a move and all that kind of stuff. So check that out, and I think you will definitely enjoy it. One of the other things we hear about a lot is the perception of Californians relocating to Southern Oregon. And are you going to be hated? Are you going to be, ran off the street or anything like that? And that's a funny one, because it's, the reality is, like, so many people that live here are actually from California. It's interesting to hear that. But none of the people that I've worked with who have relocated here from California or Arizona or Washington or Utah or Nevada or anywhere else, we've helped people from all over the country. I've never heard of anybody having an experience like that where they weren't welcomed. The only times that I would say you might get a different reaction than anything other than being welcomed with open arms would be as if you had some sort of a, elitist mentality. If you came in thinking that, like, more than everybody else because you're, from a bigger city or something like that. Those are the kind of things that rub people the wrong way here. But for the most part, what you'll find when you come here is an area that's full of, really genuine, like, good people. People who want to welcome you, who want to chat you up in the line at the grocery store is one of my favorite analogies. And in real experiences, that happens all the time. But that's something that you'll find, and that I hear about from my clients who made the move and lived here. They say, gosh, I didn't realize the people were so friendly, until they go to the grocery store and it's like you're picking out a gallon of milk or something, or grabbing some steaks, and people are like, oh, what are you barbecuing tonight? That kind of stuff, just small talk. But it's really cool, and it's something that I think makes, that small town feel become a reality in your everyday life, is just feeling like these other people care, and like that sense of community that exists here. And I think that's something that everybody's gonna feel here, unless, again, you do something to turn people off. But for the most part, that's something that everybody's going to enjoy. And that's been an experience that I've heard of from many, many people. And again, I haven't heard anything from people that have relocated here and then felt like they were unwelcome, or, like they needed to change their California plates immediately before they even, unpack their boxes. Those types of things. Just don't really hear about that a whole lot. So that is definitely a myth, I would say. But another thing that's not a myth, something that you probably could find online if you do some research, is that Southern Oregon has some really, really amazing outdoor recreation, and that extends from vineyards, which I don't know if that's necessarily like outdoor recreation, but it is outdoors. So we'll go with it and put it in this category. But the wine scene's amazing. The vineyards are very, very good. There's a lot of them. It was actually rated the #2 wine region in the country recently by, I believe, USA Today. And so anyways, like getting a lot of recognition for stuff like that. In addition to, just the normal, like traditional outdoor recreational types of opportunities like hiking and biking and fishing and hunting and camping, all those kinds of things. Like there's a ton of that here. And those are, things that, again, like you could find online if you do your research, but it's stuff that like, it's true, I guess what I'm trying to say. If you find that stuff online, like I can tell you that is absolutely true. And that's one of the things that makes this area so appealing to a lot of people, is like, if you have kids and you don't want them stuck in front of the TV or the tablet or the gaming console or something, it's like, there's so much to do outside here. If you have a space where you have a couple acres or something, like I do, the kids can play in the yard and do all sorts of stuff like that, or go build a fort, or go hiking, in the woods nearby, stuff like that. And there's all sorts of opportunities like that. It just kind of provides for a different type of lifestyle that people kind of forget exists, it seems like. So it does exist here. I can tell you that for sure in my experience of being here. Another thing that is kind of, we don't really get a lot of press for, we don't get very well known for, is the culture. And that's something that Southern Oregon actually does surprisingly well. And so I talked about Ashland earlier, and I'll mention that again because Ashland has been rated one of the top small arts towns in all of America. I don't remember what magazine did that, but it was rated one of the top small arts towns in America, and for good reason. The Shakespeare Festival in Ashland is world-renowned. It's amazing. The scene in Ashland in general, being a college town, is really good. Lots of amazing art galleries, and that's something that's not just, Ashland. That's all around Southern Oregon. From Ashland to Jacksonville to Grants Pass, there's so many art galleries and great places to go eat where you have, live bands and stuff like that, just musicians and artists of various forms who are out, and supported by the community. It's not like these people are just doing their thing. It's like they're doing well, a lot of them. And so you get places like I said, the Shakespeare Festival in Ashland, or the Brit Festival in Jacksonville, which is an outdoor concert series that lasts most of the summer. There's a lot of thriving arts types of environments here that people don't really know about and don't really think about until you've actually been here and experienced it. And so that's something I think is very important for you to know if you're evaluating Southern Oregon as a possible place to relocate or retire. It's important to know that there's places like that exist, that there's incredible dining in Ashland, again, for example, like some really, really spectacular restaurants that get recognized in national publications. Like the New York Times has talked about Moss as a restaurant in Ashland that's fantastic. And there's all sorts of different places that have been, well respected and recognized for doing such a great job. So that's something that I think is good to know. People kind of sleep on that. They think that, little podunk Southern Oregon doesn't probably have, a lot of these kind of higher end places to dine, or higher end experiences, or a good wine scene, or good golf. They think of it kind of as like a more blue collar area, which it is in a lot of senses, but it also has some really, really good things going. We have really spectacular builders here for that could build beautiful high-end homes. So we have, a lot of those nice types of things, nice boutiques and stuff like that. So that's something a lot of people, again, kind of don't realize that exists here because they haven't been here and experienced it. They maybe Googled, is there a Nordstrom's in Medford, Oregon? It's like, no, there's not. But there's some good boutiques and, again, good restaurants and all that. So if that's kind of more the lifestyle you're looking for, there's a lot of those types of opportunities here. And that's another thing that I think is important to know, is the types of homes here. So we are here in the Twin Creeks community of Central Point. If you look around me, you can see there's some beautiful homes, big parks, these nice tree-lined streets that are just full of color. It's out behind me. And it's just such a wonderful spot. And so the thing is, there's communities like this all around Southern Oregon that exist that are just awesome. So I think that's another thing that's kind of a little bit of a myth that people don't realize. Like, they think if you live in Southern Oregon, you're going to be on acreage and, you know, have dial-up internet and stuff like that. And it's actually, none of that's true. It's very, you know, pretty modern. A lot of the areas have been renovated, like the downtowns and stuff like that have been updated over the years. And so you're going to find, you know, some really pretty cities. Central Point, for example, has done a very good job of, you know, uplifting the city and creating like new spaces that support the local businesses and stuff like that. So you'll see a lot of those types of things in the towns around here where, you know, the cities have really tried to encourage development, encourage businesses to come in and stuff like that. And then you pair that with the sense of community, and you get a lot of people that want to support those businesses. So it all kind of works out pretty well. So if you're considering relocating to Southern Oregon, definitely encourage you, you know, again, download that relocation guide or just reach out. Give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, whatever you prefer. And I'd be more than happy to chat with you, talk about any of the things that, you know, we talked about here on this video or whatever other questions you have. Again, I've lived here over 30 years, have a lot of experience in the area, know it like the back of my hand. And between myself and my real estate team, we have helped hundreds of people to relocate and do the exact thing that you may be considering doing. And so I hope you found this video valuable to help in that decision-making process. And again, if there's anything that I can do to help you decide if Southern Oregon could be a good fit for you, I hope you'll reach out. Again, I'm Brian Simmons with the Buying Southern Oregon team. I thank you for watching this video, and I hope you check out this next one. Have a good one.